so the committee knows, I will be jumping off at 3:15 for the Joint Legislative Management Committee, just so you know.
3:15, yeah, I'm hoping by then, yeah. Welcome to Senate Education, Friday, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, 1:33 in the afternoon. Mr. Smith, if you wouldn't mind sharing your news with us, or a reminder, that would be great. And then we will move in, and then we'll hear from Ledge Council on our school safety bill. But Mr. Smith, the floor is yours.
So very briefly, hello, Senator Hashim online and the rest of the members of the committee, Mr. Chairman. So I'm Bill Smith, the lobbyist for the Retail Lumber Dealers Association. You've been getting a lot of emails and questions and nagged by me about the event at VTC, and that is Monday at 8 a.m. So this is the final time you'll hear from me on this, I swear. So I brought some maps of where to go at VTC if you need one or don't. Take one down and pass it around. I know the chair can't make it, and I understand that Senator Hashim is not going to make it either, which is fine. So this event is with the Tech Center students in our high schools that are in the building trades, and there are over 160 of them coming with their instructors to VTC on Monday, and they're kicking it off with legislative breakfast at 8 a.m. And after that, they're going into some pretty interesting groups where they'll learn about equipment and types of equipment they can use and types of work they can do in the building trades to give them some idea of where to go with that education that we're all providing them. And we're obviously very interested in both the workforce development and the education side of it. And I know that we'll be talking about some of the pieces later on, but thank you very much. And we have a full schedule today. Anything else?
Well, I just thank you for the invitation. We've already got 2 events in Rutland County that we got pre-booked in.
Completely understand, and
love to attend.
We'll be reporting back to you, and who knows what will come out of it. Something usually does. So thank you very much.
And given I know people's schedules are crazy that day, the governor is in Bennington that day. I can't be there. Perhaps if we've got some time later on in the session, could maybe all take a trip down or something like that.
VTC has some great facilities and some great instructors there.
Yeah.
The students that choose to go on in the building trades in particular, it's a great way to get more information and come out hopefully with a better job. So
I had a great visit last year when you did it. Thanks again for doing it. And we can always share this with our colleagues, right? Anybody who's interested.
Yes,
yeah. Great.
Thank you, Senator. Thanks, Senator Hashim.
Thank you very much. Yep. Good to see you.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you. We're just waiting on a clean copy of some. Senator Hashim emailed some language. Related to this new draft.
Can you talk about the?
Yeah. Well, what we did was we decided just to throw something in there for now, and then we can all respond to that in any way that people would like to. So we might as well just wait for the clean draft.
It's up to you. The behavioral threat assessment language hasn't changed.
Yeah. Okay, so if we want to, were you able to put something in for Senator Hashim?
Yes, and that's the one change.
So do you want to just tell us what you put in, and then we can respond, and then we can.
Sure. So Beth St. James, Office of Legislative Counsel, happy Friday. Page 4, Section 3 of the bill, the access control and visitor management policy. This is in a response to the conversation around kind of
Page 4, line 3. And remember, you won't see it in this copy in front of us.
Yes.
Okay.
That reference should still be there. So the section 3 is on page 4, the access control and visitor management policy. At the very end of subsection A, there's a new sentence added that reads, if a school recognizes, and Hayden has it.
Thanks very much. Great, now we can actually see what's in there.
Great, so we're going right to page 4, lines 8 through 10.
Sit tight. So, and just to bring us back, this was Senator Hashim's, the Putney School asked about a barn. We also know that there are both public and independent schools that sometimes have other buildings, particularly agricultural buildings, greenhouses, and this was a possible solution. So please.
So the new addition is highlighted on page lines 8 through 10 on page 4. If a school recognizes a need to leave a specific structure unlocked as needed for agricultural or recreational purposes, it may justify leaving that structure unlocked in its visitor policy.
Senator Weeks.
Oh, I need,
Oh, Senator Hashim. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
Yep, no, I was just I really just wanted to thank Beth St. James for so quickly getting this together. I know things are very busy, and Senator Campion, as you mentioned, this did stem from a constituent request of mine, the Putney School. There's a lot of barn structures there, and I'm sure there's lots of other schools in Vermont where there's recreational structures, greenhouses, agricultural buildings that don't necessarily need to be locked all day for the safety of students. So, this is just that carve out, and I think it could be useful for those types of schools.
You all may be seeing this in judiciary as well, please.
no, when I read about a half an hour ago, this Senator Hashim's note, I thought, just kind of keep it simple and something to the effect of, each supervisory union member district board or supervisory district board shall adopt an access control and visitor management policy, comma, to include all campus buildings, comma, consistent with, and let them decide what's locked and unlocked. There's probably more to these campuses than agricultural and recreational. It's just, we're trying to think for everybody, but let them think for themselves, just as long as it's reflected in the policy.
I think the issue we might run into with the Putney School and some other schools is that they're not part of a supervisory district, or we would be giving them, I'm not sure how that would.
You require, the next subsection is requiring
thank you.
approved and recognized independent schools to do the same thing as public schools.
On their own. It could go either way.
I mean, I thought,
Whatever you'd like.
I thought that a main part of this bill is to create, consistency and uniformity across all schools, regarding having the majority of their structures be locked, the purpose of this is to make a few exceptions for structures that don't have students, but rather have cows and horses, for example.
All good as written.
Okay. Okay, so we will keep it as written. Other changes, Ms. St. James?
Yes, before we get to the behavioral threat assessment, I just wanted to note on page 2, this is the fire and emergency preparedness drills section, the option-based response drills section. There is a small change that was requested, I believe, by Pete. Is that accurate? Senator Campion about.
Yes,
Okay.
Barbara did request that.
So page 2.
On page 2.
Yes,
line
lines 3 through 4, the policy shall require option-based response drills, including fire drills, to be conducted.
Yeah,
I
they
think
want to
they're,
make sure the fire drill piece was in.
Yes.
They've heard from some local departments. Make sure that's still part of it.
and so the only other change to this draft is on page 4, section 4, the behavioral threat assessment teams. The language highlighted in yellow is the change between draft 7.1 and this draft. And this is language that was provided by the ACLU and, oh gosh, I don't even remember who you were working with at this point, but the Human Rights Commission and I think Legal Aid.
That's correct.
Each supervisory union, or I'm on line 16, each supervisory union or supervisory district And each approved independent school that utilizes a threat assessment team shall ensure members of the team receive training at least annually in best practices of conducting behavioral threat assessments as well as bias training. In providing bias training, school officials shall consult with the Office of Racial Equity to ensure the training conforms to best practices and acceptable standards for such trainings.
Did you want to just mention that last little change?
Yes, so I had previously on page 5, line 5, page 5, line 5, it used to read for students on an individual education plan, and the IEP stands for individual education program. So I just made that change.
So the big change is,
Absolutely.
the big change is we dropped the membership requirements, specifically based on the sensitivity to including law enforcement officials and threat assessment.
Yeah, the big thing I would describe it as, this is now, if you're doing it, we're collecting data. I do believe, and I know the agency is here, they also have a memo that I'm not sure if I think they too may have disagreed with us naming out who would be on these threat assessment plans. But I can let the agency, but yes, I think the big piece of this is what we're saying is we're not requiring it yet. And I think we have information from both sides. Some say this could make a difference. Some are saying this isn't going to make a difference. I think we need to determine that before we make a statewide policy. Remember, right now, you want to create a threat assessment plan. State's not preventing you from doing it. If you don't want to have one, it's similar to SROs. And I would likely, I would think that we would continue to pull parts of this information in the coming days and weeks to see if we can land somewhere that's more, take another bite at this in terms of whether or not we should mandate it now or not. But what I'm seeing is both sides are presenting information that it might not make sense to therefore to go forward right now, since I think it would become a big debate and could become a problem until the committee takes a formal position. Would you like to say something?
Sure, yeah. For the record, Lindsay Hedges, Agency of Education. The administration does not support the language as written in section 4. I understand the committee wants to move this today, so happy to keep working with you on this. And regarding your question, Mr. Chair, we're more concerned with essentially just requiring that these teams are in existence and are not as concerned as who specifically is on them. Yeah, happy to answer any questions that come up, and if I can't answer them, we will be here in the coming weeks.
So even if we were to get to a point where we were mandating, you're saying naming the people on these is still something you don't necessarily agree with. What we had done at one point was we said, I think superintendents, an administrator, a counselor, a police, all of that. And I think that is what Mr. Fisher also said.
Yeah, so
You want the flexibility, each school is going to
the
do it on their
flexibility, and I think also just going off of the guidance of the best practice that we've kind of based this around, that would put us at odds with what best practice states.
Sorry,
Just out of curiosity, so in page 5, line 12, section D, so who's reporting each year? Just those that are doing threat assessment, who have established threat assessment teams?
At this point, that is correct. It would be anybody, that's who we can collect the data from, are those people that are doing it. That would also give us an idea of how many people are doing it, which I hazard to guess a lot of the state is probably already doing it, but I could be wrong. Same thing, sir.
Well, I would just, yeah, so the
Okay.
data will be collected from anyone who's completing a behavioral threat assessment. But also, this draft requires data on manifestation determination reviews. And those are likely to be conducted in every school because they are regarding, it's a separate process and requirement. So this language is requiring data on that process as well. So even if a school does not have a behavioral threat assessment team or has not conducted behavioral threat assessments. If they do conduct a manifestation determination review, they are required to report data on that as well.
I'd just like to echo the agency of education. I think it's a missed opportunity. I think we've got a problem. I think we've got one approach to a solution. I think that the enhanced relationship between the school administrators and law enforcement is a positive move, not a negative move. I see the change in the language to be detrimental to recognizing the severity of the issue.
We'd like to go back to the original minus the calling out of who would be on the committee.
No.
No, you would want to keep
I
that.
would.
Okay, even though.
To about this point yesterday,
Okay.
I would. It's just my.
Yeah.
I think there's a greater good here that's served as opposed to recognizing the exceptions of the impact. I think the greater good is more important here than
Questions, additional questions, concerns, comments?
no.
Yes, Senator Hashim, please.
So, I've been going back and forth on this, especially section 4 since last night. And well, one question, have we heard from any law enforcement about being included in this at all?
So
I don't recall getting any testimony.
I think we have, does anybody recall? I don't believe we had law enforcement in on any level. Whatever may or may not leave here today, I think that would be something I would probably ask Senator Sears to do, but I'm also not opposed to having law enforcement come in on Tuesday if we want, so that we can continue this conversation a little bit as well. Senator, please.
I do have one more.
Senator Hashim, yeah, sorry, please.
Sorry, just one more follow-up on that. I spoke with a few educators, last night and this morning about this, and I'm kind of going back to the point that was brought up at the very beginning of the session where we had some teachers testifying that prefer that we don't create additional mandates requiring them to do more things that really is creating more bureaucracy for them. And I think we should also take into consideration the fact that there are members of staff and administration that are doing their own threat assessments in their own ways without this having been in statute. They're well-educated and observant adults who, they're not just, floating in limbo, letting threats just, take place. So, I do wonder about the need for this section right now. Like I said, I'm going back and forth in different directions, based on who I'm speaking with, but I do think there's some more testimony that's needed.
So, I think this section is not mandating anything, section 4 as it is written now. In the most recent draft, I just want to make sure you have the most recent one, which is draft 8.1. So there's.
Okay, so you're right, yeah.
In terms of law enforcement, it's possible, but I don't know for sure if Dee Barbitt would represent law enforcement or not. I was just reminded that yes, she did come in.
Right. So what I'm reading now on 14 and 15, if a school or a supervisory union or district already has a threat assessment team, then this will affect how they operate. But if they don't have a threat assessment team, they're not required to create a threat assessment team?
That's right. So, but based on some of the testimony we heard yesterday, we know that there are threat assessment teams out there. There's some concern around how they would work within the marginalized communities in Vermont. So what we're saying here is what you would have to do is for the state, before the state comes down and says this is going to be a statewide policy, we would gather additional information from those that already have the threat assessment teams. And then we would get that information and then return and either move forward and say, this is going to be statewide, this is law of the land, or based on the research that we've received, we've decided to treat it like perhaps we've treated other things in Vermont, whether it's SROs or other local decisions.
Got it. All right, then I apologize for having that go over my head at the beginning of the testimony then. So I mean, I think that makes a bit more sense then.
Senator Jewett.
So I'm prepared to help move the bill along today for sure, but if at some point we do want to look at bringing law enforcement back on the threat assessment team, what I would suggest is, let me back up a little bit. We heard that these threat assessment teams are not punitive in nature, and that's been asserted several times. Then we had anecdotal evidence saying actually they often do end up being punitive.
Right.
And then I've also been speaking to some of my education colleagues who say, you know, law enforcement comes and sits at the table, but really the only thing that they're providing is sort of like an outside perspective on safety. They just, it's sort of like a lens that they provide to the group. So I guess I'm still looking for a little bit more clarity, around the evidence that we were given, or the anecdotal evidence that we were given around the fact that these groups do end up being more punitive. If we could be provided with some data, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
And also just what is the role of the officer on the team? I think that could be really helpful for everyone if we ever do want to get on board with having a member of law enforcement on a team.
We could talk to some that already have it on their teams and kind of understand.
That's who I spoke with
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, good. So just throwing that out there.
Anything else? Senator Williams, anything right now? Okay, so I cannot make a motion. I don't know if there's somebody, Senator Hashim.
Speaking of which, I was just about to make a motion to make a motion to vote on this.
Okay, motion's on the floor. Do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. We can do you want to do, yeah. So this is draft 8.1 of committee bill, education, school safety. Senator Williams would take the roll.
Senator Gould,
Yes.
Senator Hashim,
Yes.
Senator Weeks.
No.
Senator Williams, no. Senator Kemp,
Yes. So we move it 3-2. We will we'll end up in finance for a week, as well as have a walkthrough with judiciary. And we will also continue this conversation a little bit next week. But I really appreciate everybody's thoughtfulness and respectful conversation. And we've got a waste of. Yes, Senator Hashim, if you would please be the reporter. Thank you.
Yep. So it'll. So it's not going to be on Wednesday. It'll be. We've got quite a bit of
guessing
time.
about
We have to go to appropriations and then judiciary, right?
About a week and a half, I'm guessing.
Okay. Sounds good.
And we may even have a committee amendment by that point. Who knows? Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Any other business at this point from anyone in the room? And may I ask you to introduce yourself? We don't-
Oh, yes, hi, I'm Allison Despathy. Yeah, just from Danville.
Citizen? Oh, great,
Yeah, Danville
great,
citizen, thank you.
great. And
Lyndon from the Nebraska group.
okay, Not seeing any other business at this point.